Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of American Indian Graduate Center's Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Corey Still. Today, we're honored and humbled to have with us Prairie Bighorn Blount. Prairie grew up on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in eastern Montana and is an enrolled member of the Fort Peck Sioux Tribe. She graduated from Rocky Mountain College with a bachelor's degree in business and from the University of Montana with a master's degree in business administration. Perry currently serves as the executive director of American Indigenous Business Leaders, which is an organization she has been passionate about for years. She was an active ABLE chapter member in college and also worked for the National ABLE office during her graduate studies. She's also worked in DC, providing accounting and contract management services to help support economic development within Native communities, and has served as the comptroller for Northern Cheyenne Tribe in Montana and worked for an auditing firm specializing in government compliance. So, Prairie, thank you so much. We want to welcome you to the show today. Thank you for being here with us. How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good. Yes, good morning. Good morning. Yes, we are. We're all sitting here sipping our caffeine as we're going through this podcast this morning. But
Yes.
first and foremost, we do the biography, but is there anything else that you want to tell us about yourself?
Um, no, not really. I think that was a great introduction. Yeah, that's who I am. Those are some of the things that I've done, and yeah, I'm really excited and happy to be here talking with you guys this morning.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, the work that you and Abel have been doing has really been seen. I know we've had a partnership together between Abel and AIGC, and so helping with all those things, it's really appreciative. So, Perry, there's a lot of initiatives that individuals can get involved with to empower and support our tribal communities. Um, for people looking to get involved in things like that, what is some advice that you can share?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a great question, Corey. One of the things that I have had really great success in and has actually worked for me on the personal level is really dig in and find out what you're passionate about, right? Abel believes that healthy communities are made up of individuals that are passionate about what they're doing. And I feel like a lot of our Indigenous youth, that aspect of passion and what gets you up and out of bed in the morning. What are you excited to do? What do you love to do? Figure out what that is and, dig into that and just lean in. A lot of those fun passion areas are surprisingly a way that you can provide for your family. So a lot of people are artists. They do beadwork, they do paintings, drawings, pottery work, weaving. Natives have an incredible, beautiful history of being gifted and talented artists, and a lot of our students are passionate about those sort of things. So one of the cool things about business is you can sort of wrap your talents around or use those business tools to help you kind of foster your passion and figure out a way to kind of make a living for yourself. And we see so many great examples of people who have done that. Stephen Paul Judd, amazing artist who, if you've ever heard him speak or heard his story, he didn't really know what he was doing when he started, but what he knew is that he loved art and he loved to make things that excited him and connected him to his culture, and also connected current like pop culture, and how do you make those two work together and correlate. And he comes up with some really, really cool stuff. I am always amazed by people that are artistic, because I am not. As you heard from my bio, that Corey said, it was a little bit on the dry side, but I am always so inspired by our young people because they are so creative. And really, I would just encourage people to lean into those things that get your soul fired up. One of the cool things that's come out of all the chaos that is this pandemic and the way that things are sort of unraveling for us is that I believe that a lot of our Indigenous students and people are stepping to the forefront. They're providing for elders. Corey, you mentioned earlier about the project we have with American Indian Graduate Center, and a lot of our students have stepped to the forefront and they have found passion projects. We have students that are working to create community gardens for elders in their communities. We have students that are creating elder care packages, through our partnership, but we also have students that are really leaning in and saying, how can we help? How can we make this how can we get through this together as a community? How can I use my skills, my talents to get through, these kind of uncertain times? So I really like to encourage young people, figure out what it is that makes you happy. And a lot of times that is something that you can contribute to your community. Because when you're bringing that happiness and that joy and that just that energy to the table, it's contagious, and you're encouraging other people to find out what they're good at and what they're passionate about, and to bring that to the table as well. And really, that's what we need in Indian country, right? We need people that are inspired and that are fired up and that love doing what they're doing. So that's one way I think that we can encourage our Indigenous youth to be just mindful and aware of what is it that I like to do? What do I love to do? How can I think about using those gifts and those talents to better my community?
And I think that's really some great encouragement there when we talk about having especially our Indigenous youth bring those tools that they already have within them to the table to support their community. I think that really kind of leads us into the next question, because we talk about coming back and providing for our communities. Because so oftentimes, we hear that we're encouraging our youth to go and gain tools and knowledge to support our communities in the future. But how can tribal governments or leaderships or even community leaderships and community governments create support systems that power the youth on that journey?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question and something that's been coming up a lot lately. And I think it's a multifaceted, issue. But I think one of the main ways that tribal governments can help support their youth is give them a voice when they come home, and give them the honor that they may or may not have earned yet. I know in my career, I was blessed with a boss um, who believed in me when I did not believe in myself. And I remember she gave me a project, and I'm very honest. So I straight up said, I don't know how to do this. I've never done anything like this before. I'm not even sure that I can do this. And she said, you can do this. I'm not worried about it. So do it. And it was sort of a big responsibility, but it made me realize that, um, hey, someone believes in me. They're counting on me to do it. I'm going to step to the plate and I'm going to do it. And I think a lot of times with our younger people that go and get an education and they want to come home, people are really quick to discount that, discount the courage that it takes to leave and be in a completely new environment. And it's a little bit of a trust factor too. I get that, but give them the opportunity, and also give them grace. Like, it's a learning experience. Like, how many times have we tried things and failed in our jobs? And that's just kind of how it works. So it's a learning experience. So no one's going to be perfect right out the gate, but at least honor and respect the fact that, they're trying to gain new skills. And man, you guys, I've spoken to so many students. 99% of the Indigenous students that I speak to, they want to go home and they want to help their communities. At the heart of most of our young people is just this driving desire to help our communities. So I think for tribal leaders, for tribal systems, one of the best things that we can do is give them that space and then also support them as they grow into those roles, because no one is perfect, and there will be mistakes and there will be bumps and bruises, but just giving them that grace to grow so that they can be pillars, really pillars of strength in their communities.
So I think that's really empowering when we talk about, okay, we have to just give our youth that space, that place, and that voice. But to kind of flip it now, because you talked about you work with a lot of Native students from a lot of different backgrounds, and we know that those students have incredible passions. And as you said, 99% of the students you talk to have that need or that urge to be able to give back to their home community. So, what advice or strategies do you have for those individuals, for those students who are looking to give back?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are so many opportunities for students to give back and to be involved. Um, one of the coolest things that I've seen recently is um, students creating those opportunities based on what they're passionate about. So, really try, like, this goes back to what I said earlier, like dig in and figure out what am I passionate about and how can I use that to help my community. So I have worked with a lot of students that are doing like food drives, clothing drives. They're doing back to school, uh, what is it called? Back to school supply drives. I don't know
Oh
what
yeah,
that's called.
yeah.
Well, they're gathering up back to school items for younger students. And so really dig in and figure out what your need is in your community. All of our communities are different and we all have so many different needs. And how can you fill that gap? That's a basic business principle, which I love that because it's what our indigenous communities have always done. We look at the need within our communities and we figure out how to fill it. And that's really what people do in business. They look at the market, they figure out what the market needs, they figure out how to provide it, how to price it. Our people have been doing that forever without the price tag on it, right? So
Mm.
this idea of business and marketing your skills is really ingrained in indigenous cultures. And to me, it's been so exciting and inspiring to watch our students kind of put those uh, connect the dots, in those areas and figure out like, hey, I'm coming from a long line of strong business leaders within our indigenous communities, people that looked at the need and figured out how to fill it. And I'm just really stepping in line with things that my ancestors did a long time ago. It's very empowering for our students. And I think that that's another way that students can be involved in their communities now. I tell our students, you are not tomorrow's business leaders. You are leading right now. And I think that when you empower people and you believe in people, they do rise to the occasion. And man, I love working with students. I know you guys work with students too at
Hmm.
American Indian Graduate Center, and they are so inspiring. And they deserve every chance in the world to make their ideas come to life. And they deserve our support 100%. And the cool thing about it is a lot of our students are doing this. They're out there figuring out what the need is, and they're filling it. A lot of them are doing it on their own dime. They're just seeing a need and they're like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do GoFundMe. We're gonna, you know, donate a portion of our own paycheck to make sure that our elders are fed. And they're doing it. So I think our students just need to just don't be afraid to do it. Like, take it from me, you are going to make mistakes and you're going to learn from those mistakes. But you still need to take the chance to get out there and to do it and to contribute. And the feeling you get when you're contributing within your community is really unreal. You really can feel that sense of pride, and um, you can feel when you're plugged into something that you're called to do. It really brings so much value into your life, and I feel like it really feeds that passion and that fire for how can I do more, how can I inspire other people to be involved in their communities. And it's contagious, so that's good. So I feel like that's my job here at able. I feel like that's probably your jobs there at American Indian Graduate Center, to just support student leaders as much as we can in every single way possible, because they really are incredible, and they really are out there making a difference today. If we really are honest about it, they are doing work today, whether or not they're recognized, in a larger sense. They really are doing work within our communities, and it's good. It's good work.
And I definitely agree, because we talk about just hearing our student stories, hearing and listening to them, and listening to their passion and their hard work, and hearing what they want to do. It never ceases to amaze me, the work that we do here with students at American Indian Graduate Center, and then the work in the past that I've done as researcher and things like that. You hear these stories, and not just the passion, but the resiliency. It's exciting. I think it was MC1. He talked about, they're not the leaders of tomorrow, they're the leaders of today. which is so true because
Yes.
so many of these young Indigenous people um, are going out and creating that change.
Yeah.
We know that, as professionals who work with Native youth and who support Native youth, we know that there are a lot of different pathways that the youth can take. And there's a lot of different pathways they take to give back to their tribal communities that sometimes necessarily doesn't result in them working for their tribes or working in their home communities. And I think, for instance, I know scholars, and I I take it from my own example. The work I'm doing now, I'm 2 states away from my home community, but I'm still striving to impact my tribal community. I'm still working to not only impact my tribal community, but the greater Native community. I know students who uh, work in engineering and water management, and
Yeah.
I had a conversation with that student where she said, I know I'm never going to be able to be hired by my tribe because
Yeah.
they don't have this, but I can work for an organization where I do projects that directly affect my tribe. And so these alternative pathways of giving back, do you have any resources or strategies for students that are kind of navigating those ways to give back?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I agree completely. There's so many students that find passion in certain areas, and then they look back at their home community and realize there's not a lot of opportunity in the areas that I'm passionate about. I'm a prime example of that. I grew up in Lame Deer, and um, the primary sources of employment on that res at that time where I could work for IHS, I could work for the Bureau, I could work for the tribe, um, or maybe like the school system, right? So there's pretty limited job options. None of those really, sparked a passion when I thought about working for them. But like you mentioned, there are so many ways to contribute, and really thinking about you are a member of a larger Indigenous community, a worldwide Indigenous community, really. And the minute that you start, taking those limitations off of yourself, and it really opens up a lot of doors. I am a completely true believer of, when once you find your passion, once you find like your purpose, the minute you tap into that, like the doors just start to open, and you will realize that you're contributing in ways that you never ever anticipated. I think that is really encouraging for our students. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure that our students are facing because they're getting education, they're getting work experience, they're doing all these things um, that are great. And in the back of their mind, a lot of them are constantly thinking about how do I help my community? That is something that's unique. I feel like for Indigenous communities, we just have this sense of community and sense of responsibility for other people um, within our communities. It's ingrained in us. Um, I don't know. I know there are other cultures that have that, but I know in Indian country that's a big, big thing, and it does put a lot of stress and pressure on our students. Um, and I always encourage them to just be at peace, knowing that when you find your purpose will lead you exactly where you need to go. And if that's the larger Indigenous community, that's fine. If it leads you home to your unique and beautiful community that you grew up in, that's great too. I have done work literally all over the country. I did return home to my community and work for a few years, and that was fulfilling, and that felt good. It opened the door to the next steps, right? I think we can only do what's right in front of you, and your path will unfold as you take those steps. And just trusting that, like we have these passions that are placed inside of us, and this purpose that is placed inside of us, and when we follow it, when we tap into it, it's not going to lead you astray, and that's going to be for the good of Indian country, of Indigenous communities worldwide, really. So I encourage people to do the heart work. I think you said it earlier, these heart projects. Do the heart work and really figure out what you're passionate about. And then, follow those paths and just be confident knowing that they will lead you to your greater purpose, whatever that might look like.
I I think you said it perfectly. Honestly, um, and I think that's something that not only our Indigenous youth need to hear, but some of our young professionals need to hear too. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of friends who are now in the young professional world and things like this, and I know we have those conversations. Are
Hmm.
we giving back to our communities? Are we really giving back to? Um, are we really in the places that we need to be?
Mm.
And I think though your words kind of transcend just Native youth. They transcend to all Indigenous people, wherever they are in those communities, because we do have that instilled in us, that reciprocity to give back, that reciprocity
Yeah.
for communities, reciprocity for each other, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So, Perry, is there anything else, as we kind of wrap up here? Our listeners are hearing all these wise words. Is there anything else that you want to tell them, or any advice you want to give before we end here today?
No, I think just want to thank you guys for the opportunity. That this has been great. It's been good to sit down and chat with you. I think um, any way that we can encourage students during these interesting times, I'm happy to do that. Um, and just one more parting thought is that even if you are doing something outside of your community that you maybe you feel disconnected from your community, know that you are still a role model for people, and people are looking and they're watching and they're saying, this is what this person is doing outside of the community. And you could be inspiring people that you don't even know about. We have got social media is, keeps us connected to our communities quickly, easily. And people are watching, and people are inspired by young professionals that have gone out and have gotten education and then have landed amazing jobs that give them the opportunity to do things that they wouldn't necessarily be able to do within their communities, and students are watching. And that's one of the biggest, I believe that's one of the underlying currents for the work that we do at our organizations, is inspiring hope in students. Hope that you can tap into your passion and figure out how to make a good life for your family, and then also how to contribute in meaningful ways to the larger Indigenous community. So even if you feel like I'm not 100% where I'm trying to be right now, um, just being a good role model, and showing people that, hey, I've made it this far and you can too. I believe in you. I'm here to support you. I'm happy to share my journey with you. Any way that we can encourage others to come alongside of us, I think that is one of them. That's meaningful in and of itself, if you can be a role model and you can provide that kind of guidance and support. So um, that was long-winded. Did you want me just to say thank you and goodbye?
No, no,
I
that was perfect. No, no.
Okay, I think I'm done. I think that's all that I wanted to say. You guys, the
Well, Perry,
coffee's kicking in.
coffee's kicking in now. Look, we'll just start the show all over. Here we go.
Okay.
But Prairie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing some time and sharing some really strong and inspiring words. And so,
Uh,
thank you. And um, I know our listeners will really enjoy this.
well,
And
good. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
thank you. And so, to all of our listeners out there today, again, we just want to thank you for sharing story with us, listening to our conversations and listening to our words that we share here today. Um, as we finish up, if many of you are keeping count, next week is episode 8, which will be the final episode for this series. And so we hope that you continue the journey with us next week as we sit down and share story with Dr. Henrietta Mann. So until then, this is your host, Dr. Corey Still. What up?